One book at a time. Today's selection is The Conquest of Fear.
Hey friend, have you ever lay awake in the middle of the night, eyes staring aimlessly at the ceiling, your mind spinning with dozens of random, pointless thoughts? Some terrible scenario, a possible outcome, an assumption that in reality has never happened, or perhaps will never come true. To be honest, how many times have you stayed awake over a worry that never occurred? If the answer is many times, then congratulations. And also, my condolences. Welcome to my circle of friends, modern souls who are frequently trapped in the whirlpool of anxiety, the what-ifs, and the feeling of extreme exhaustion from fighting an invisible enemy. In this era, where information floods in and social media is full of other people's perfect versions, we easily fall into the trap of self-comparison and imposing unrealistic expectations on ourselves. And then, just an unanswered message, a work email you haven't dared to open, or an upcoming social appointment is enough to create an entire horror movie in our minds. We paint the worst-case scenarios ourselves, and then we live in fear of those very scripts. Imagine this, just for a brief moment. You are standing in front of a door. On the other side, you believe there is a fierce lion, baring its teeth and claws, ready to pounce on you at any time. Its roar echoes in your mind, its claws terrifyingly sharp. You tremble. You are afraid. You don't dare open that door. You have lived for a long time in anxiety, tiredness, and even exhaustion because of the shadow of that lion. Every day, you feel your energy being drained, your sleep stolen, and your joy for life slowly fading, all because of that black shadow lurking behind the door. But then, when you gather enough courage or someone gently helps you crack the door open, you realize it's just a lion drawn on paper. In fact, it's not even real. It's just a shadow cast by your own delusion. Or worse, it's just a piece of irrelevant news you accidentally read and then exaggerated yourself. Isn't it desperate? Isn't it ridiculous? We have spent so much effort, so much joy, and so much energy just to run away from something that isn't real. But that is exactly what unreal fears, the paper lions in our minds, are doing to our lives every day. It takes away your sleep, robs your joy, makes you hesitate before new opportunities, stifles your inner voice, makes you lose faith in your own abilities, and most importantly, it steals the right to live, to enjoy every moment fully, instead of forever running away from something that doesn't even exist. My dear friends, if these emotions touched your heart even a little, If you are feeling tired of running away from unreal ghosts, if you crave a release, a way to regain peace and control over your life, then you have come to the right place. I have been there. I understand the feeling of being surrounded by something invisible, but having the power to crush the soul. And that is why I want to bring you this book, a work that can change the way you perceive your own fears. So, are you ready? Take a deep breath, set all worries aside, and join me on a journey to explore inner strength to overcome all fears. Chapter 1: The True Nature of Fear. Have you ever wondered, in the end, what is fear? Why does it have such great power over our lives? We often define fear by external things. Fear of failure, fear of loneliness, fear of judgment, fear of a certain disease. But this book and our journey will redefine fear in a completely different way. A way that might change how you perceive life from here on out. Fear is not a real danger, but an abuse of the imagination. Stop for a moment and reflect on this sentence. What is real danger? It is when you stand in front of an oncoming car, a raging fire, or a truly fierce animal lurking nearby. These are situations that require an immediate response for survival. However, what percentage of the fears in your daily life fall into that real danger category? Very few, right? Most of the fear we experience, the things that keep us tossing and turning at night, the worries that make us hesitate to pursue our dreams, are not existing physical threats. They are products of the imagination. Imagination, our most powerful tool, is being abused to work against us. We have the ability to visualize the future, to set up scenarios, but instead of using it to paint a bright picture, we frequently use it to create the worst possible outcomes. We imagine failure even before starting. We imagine rejection even before speaking up. We imagine illness even before having symptoms. Just think about it. Where does true fear lie? It doesn't lie out there in the objective world. It lies within your mind, in the stories you tell yourself about what might happen. The feeling of fear is real, but its origin is often an illusion created by ourselves. We are using a powerful engine, imagination, to drive the car of our lives off a cliff instead of moving forward. This leads us to the second extremely important point: distinguishing between instinctive fear, which aids survival, and psychological anxiety, which destroys life. These two concepts might sound similar at first, but their natures are entirely different. First, instinctive fear. This is an invaluable evolutionary gift. It is an automatic response of the body and mind to a real and present threat. When you see fire, you pull your hand back. When you hear a loud noise, you startle. When you stand on a high ledge, you feel dizzy and keep your distance. These responses require no thought. They happen in a flash and help you avoid danger, preserving your life. Instinctive fear is a useful warning system, a reliable friend that helps us survive. It is the real tiger right in front of you, forcing you to act or flee. Second, psychological anxiety. This is a completely different story. Psychological anxiety is the fear of things that might happen in the future, things that happened in the past, or things that are not real in the present. It is the fear of failure, of loneliness, of what others think, of an uncertain future, of not being good enough. It doesn't come from a specific threat, but from deduction, overanalysis, and negative scenarios in the mind. Psychological anxiety does not help you survive. On the contrary, it destroys your life. It paralyzes you, causes you to procrastinate, makes you miss opportunities, erodes self-confidence, and steals the joy of living. It is the imaginary tiger that you draw in your head, and even though it isn't real, it still makes you live in fear as if it were right next to you. Think about it. Isn't most of what you call fear actually psychological anxiety? Understanding this difference is the first step to reclaiming control. When you face fear, ask yourself, is this a real tiger or an imaginary tiger? Is this a present danger or just a story in my head? And that is the key that brings us to the third point, a simple but incredibly powerful cognitive exercise, naming the fear to strip it of its power. Fear, especially psychological anxiety, often thrives most when it remains vague, hidden in the shadows of the mind. It is like a scary monster in a fairy tale. While it remains a blurry, nameless image, it can take on any terrifying form your imagination can conjure. But once you turn on the light, look straight at it, and name it, that monster usually shrinks, becomes smaller, or even disappears entirely. Naming the fear is not just a simple act. It is a ritual. It is the act of bringing fear from the vague world of emotion into the concrete world of language. Try this small exercise right now. Step 1. Listen to yourself. When you feel anxious, insecure, or afraid of something, stop. Step 2. Ask specifically. Instead of saying, "I'm afraid," ask yourself, what specifically am I afraid of? What exactly is making me afraid? You aren't just afraid of failure. Are you afraid that others will laugh at you when you fail? Are you afraid you will lose money if you fail? Or are you afraid you will never be able to get back up again after failing? You aren't just afraid of the future. Are you afraid you won't find a job you love? Are you afraid you will be lonely when you are old? Are you afraid of uncontrollable changes? Step 3. Record it, if possible. Write down your fear as detailed as you can. Once you have named it, you have dragged it out of the shadows. You have turned it from an invisible monster into a shaped entity, however small. And once you clearly see its shape, you will see it is no longer as scary as you thought. Often, it is just a thought, a scenario, an assumption. You will realize that when fear is identified, it becomes much easier to deal with. It is no longer a dense cloud covering your mind, but a specific point that you can begin to analyze, evaluate, and find a way to resolve. Chapter 2. The battle between fear and the principle of life. We are going to dive deeper into an aspect that is perhaps a bit more abstract, but incredibly powerful and decisive. The energy aspect, where fear goes against the natural flow of life. Imagine it this way. Our life is not just physical events or logical thoughts, but a continuous flow of energy. And in that flow, there are two main forces with which we frequently interact. Faith, also known as belief or trust in life, and fear. The first main point we need to engrave in our hearts is, you cannot harbor fear and harbor faith at the same time. They are like two masters in the same inner house of your mind. When one reigns, the other must step back. Think about it. Have you ever felt extremely fearful about something? Perhaps an interview, an important presentation, or a major life decision? And at the same time felt full of confidence, full of trust that everything would be fine and that you would get through it? It's very difficult, isn't it? Even impossible. When fear is deeply etched in the mind, it occupies all the space, overwhelming all other positive thoughts. It whispers the worst-case scenarios. It makes you doubt yourself, doubt your abilities, and even doubt the good things that could happen. In that moment, faith and optimism seem to disappear. It's not that they don't exist, but they are pushed back into a dark corner, lacking enough energy to manifest. Conversely, when you truly believe in your abilities, believe in a good outcome, believe in the arrangement of the universe, or simply believe that you will find a way no matter what happens, then fear no longer has a place to stand. It might linger somewhere on the edges of your mind, but it no longer has the power to control your actions or emotions. Faith is an expanding energy, while fear is a contracting energy. They are two different frequencies that cannot resonate together. Now, let's move to a powerful metaphor to better understand the impact of fear. Fear is like turning off the circuit breaker connected to the infinite energy source of the universe. Imagine this universe as a giant power source, an endless flow of energy for life, wisdom, intuition, opportunities, and creativity. Each of us is like an electrical device designed to connect to and receive power from that source. When we are connected, the current flows through. We operate smoothly, the lights are on, the machines run, and everything has vitality. But when fear appears and takes us over, it is like you personally turning off the circuit breaker in your inner home. That energy flow is still out there. The universe is still generously providing it, but you have cut the connection yourself. Everything inside you becomes dark and stagnant. You feel blurred, lost, and directionless. Intuition is blocked. Creative ideas no longer appear, and opportunities seem to stop knocking. You feel drained of energy, tired, and hopeless. It's not that the universe stopped giving you energy. It's not that the flow of life dried up. It's that you chose to disconnect through the lens of fear. You are no longer plugged in to the infinite power source outside and inside yourself. This explains why when we are afraid, we often feel weak, isolated, and helpless. We have weakened ourselves by rejecting the greatest source of support. And that brings us to the third main point and the core of this chapter. Life always wants you to grow. Fear is what hinders that expansion. Look at the natural world around us. A tree always reaches up for the light, roots digging deep into the soil, constantly growing, blooming, and bearing fruit. A river always flows toward the sea, overcoming all obstacles. A tiny seed, when sown, always has an intense desire to sprout, bud, and break through its hard shell to reach out to the world. The natural essence of life is evolution, expansion, and growth. We are born with an instinct to explore, learn, and become a better version of ourselves. When we were children, we weren't afraid to explore the world. We weren't afraid to fall and then get back up. That is the principle of life working within each of us. But what about fear? Fear wants you to do the opposite. It whispers in your ear, "Stay here. Don't change. It's safest not to try new things. Don't take risks. Don't cross the limits." Fear makes you shrink, withdraw into your safety shell, and refuse opportunities to learn, experience, and expand your vision. It holds you back, preventing you from reaching your highest potential. Fear is not part of the natural flow of life. It is an interruption, a deviation from our true nature. Life never wants you to stand still. It never wants you to step back. Life always wants you to move forward, learn, grow, and shine as brightly as possible. So, what is the core of this chapter 2? It is the profound realization that fear is not just a negative emotion, but an energetic force that goes against the very basic principle of life itself. It is a choice, even an unconscious one, to disconnect from the infinite power of the universe, to reject the natural growth that life always intends for you. Every time fear rises, ask yourself, am I harboring fear or faith? Am I disconnecting or trusting in the flow of life? Am I hindering my own expansion or allowing myself to grow as I was meant to? This is not just theory, but an energetic truth that you can feel and choose every day. And the journey to conquer fear is the journey of reconnecting with the powerful flow of life, where you are allowed to become the greatest version of yourself. See you in the next chapter. Chapter 3, The Fear of Lack and Money. In this chapter, we will face a familiar, silent, but extremely powerful monster: the fear of lack and money. Have you ever felt that even though you have tried your best, even though your income is much better than before, there is still a constant worry about money, a persistent sense of insecurity that you don't have enough or might not have enough in the future? We have all experienced that, and it is one of the greatest, deepest fears of humanity, the fear of financial security. Part 1. Analyzing the scarcity mindset. Why do we always feel like we don't have enough even when we have a lot? Actually, this is quite interesting. Look around you. Maybe you are living in a comfortable house, have enough food and drink, have a smartphone in your hand, and your bank account is not zero. By the standards of many previous generations, we are living in incredible wealth. So why, even when we have a lot, do we still feel like it's not enough? That is the scarcity mindset, a trap that our brains easily fall into. The brain is programmed to seek safety, to stockpile for difficult times. Throughout thousands of years of evolution, scarcity was a harsh reality. Lack of food, lack of shelter, lack of resources. Therefore, the mechanism of worrying about lack is deeply embedded in our subconscious. In this 21st century, modern society has amplified it greatly. We live in a culture of non-stop consumption. Advertisements are everywhere, constantly telling us that we need this, must have that, to be happy, to be successful. Then social media, where we easily compare ourselves to the perfect version of others. Fancy vacations, designer items, lives that seem to have no financial burden. This comparison creates a vicious cycle. The more we look, the more we compare, the more we feel lacking, even though in reality, we might already have a lot. I myself have been stuck in that spiral, There were periods when, although my work was quite good and my income was stable, I still always felt it wasn't enough. Whenever I had a sum of money, I immediately thought about spending it on this or that, and then worried about what would happen if I didn't have it. It was a constant feeling of insecurity, a race without a finish line. To be honest, the scarcity mindset is not about the amount of money you have, but about how you perceive it. Do you find yourself always looking at what you don't have instead of appreciating what you have? That is the root of the fear of lack. Part 2. Changing mindset. Supply does not come from jobs or people, but from the value you create. So how do we escape this psychological trap? This is when we need a radical change in mindset. Most of us are taught that financial security comes from a stable job, a good boss, or even from the help of others. But in reality, everything can change. Jobs can be lost, companies can go bankrupt, people can leave. Relying on these external factors, we will always live in fear. The book The Conquest of Fear reminds us of a powerful truth. Supply does not come from jobs or people, but from the value you create. Think about this more deeply. Value here is not just the amount on the payroll. It is your skills, knowledge, creativity, problem-solving ability, networking ability, ability to learn and adapt. When you focus on developing yourself and cultivating these values, you automatically become a source of supply for yourself. Imagine you are a tree. Your source of nutrition is not a specific gardener, but your own ability to absorb water and nutrients from the soil and synthesize energy from the sun to grow. If you have deep and strong roots, you can stand firm against any storm. Real financial security comes from belief in your own ability to create value, regardless of the circumstances. When you believe that you can always create value, you will no longer fear losing a job or a specific source of income. Because you know you can always find another way, create another value. So, instead of worrying about holding tightly to a job, focus on cultivating skills that make you indispensable, not just in one workplace, but in the vast market. Learn non-stop, challenge yourself, and always find ways to serve others with your unique values. When you do that, money will naturally find its way to you. Part 3. Practice. Generosity is the antidote to the fear of poverty. And here is one of the most powerful antidotes to the fear of lack that we can practice immediately. Generosity. Sounds a bit contradictory, right? When we fear lack, our natural instinct is to hoard, to hold tightly to what we have. But it is generosity that is the key to breaking the chains of that fear. When you are generous, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious and the universe that you have enough. You have enough to share, to give away. This is not just about money. Generosity can be the time you spend listening to a friend, the knowledge you share to help a colleague, a sincere word of encouragement, a smile, or simply caring for others. When you give sincerely, you will feel the inner fulfillment. The emptiness of the scarcity mindset will gradually be replaced by the warmth of gratitude and connection. Moreover, generosity often creates a positive loop. When you give, you not only help others, but also open the door for good things to return to you, not necessarily immediately or from the same person. It could be new opportunities, quality relationships, or simply a more optimistic spirit. Try this. Instead of worrying about not having enough money to buy something, try to find a way to help someone who is in difficulty, even if it's just a small act. Share the knowledge you have. Spend time for someone who needs to be heard. Observe what happens in your mind and emotions. You will realize that the feeling of abundance does not come from accumulating, but from giving. The fear of lack is an illusion. It is not the reality of the amount of money in your account, but a product of a mind imprisoned by old beliefs and unhealthy comparisons. The power to overcome this fear lies in your ability to create value and the generosity to share that value with the world. Remember, you have more than you think. Don't let the fear of money hold you back. Stand up, create value, and generously share it. The universe will respond. Chapter 4. The Power of Magical Thinking. Does the name magical thinking sound a bit like science fiction? You might think, does it mean I just need to think positively and everything will be fine? It is not quite that simple or unrealistic. But in fact, it is one of the most powerful mechanisms we have to shape our reality, to change how we react to the world, and most importantly, to reverse the negative scripts trying to take over our minds. The goal of this chapter is very clear: how to use our very thoughts to completely reverse the negative scenarios spinning in our heads, turning them into powerful motivations to move forward. The first main point we need to understand is the mechanism of autosuggestion, or how repetitive thoughts create your reality. Imagine your brain as a fertile garden. Every thought is a seed. Do you sow weed seeds, which are negative thoughts, anxiety, and fear, or roses, which are positive thoughts, confidence, and hope? No matter which kind, if you keep repeating and nurturing it daily, it will sprout, grow, and dominate that garden. That is the mechanism of autosuggestion. It is not some distant mystical art. It is simply the way our repetitive thoughts, whether good or bad, gradually sink deep into the subconscious and create beliefs. Then, from those beliefs, create actions and results. I remember once, before a big project, I was obsessed with the thought that I would fail and that I wasn't capable enough. The more I thought about it, the heavier everything became. My body felt sluggish and my spirit plummeted. I began to procrastinate and avoid it. And guess what? Ultimately, that project really didn't achieve the expected results. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I had auto-suggested failure to myself from the start. Fear turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy. The book, The Conquest of Fear, emphasizes that fear is also built from this mechanism. When you fear something and repeat that fear in your mind, you are unintentionally sowing its seeds. So, how do you stop those weed seeds as soon as they sprout, before they take deep root in the garden of your mind? That is when we need the second technique, the second main point, the circuit breaker technique, stopping negative thoughts as soon as they sprout. Imagine an electric current running through your brain. When a negative thought pops up, it's like a current wanting to pass through to create a circuit of fear and anxiety. If you allow it to run, it will gradually create a path, a thought habit. The circuit breaker technique is the act of actively cutting that current. It works like this. First, identification. As soon as a negative thought, a failure scenario, or a feeling of anxiety sprouts in your head, even just a passing flash, identify it immediately. Don't let it pull you further. Second, cutting. Then, decisively, you must cut that circuit. You can say out loud, "Stop," or "No," or "Delete." Some people even like to clap their hands loudly once, or use a decisive hand gesture as if brushing something away. The goal is to create a small shock to break that negative thought flow. Third, replacement. This step will be explained more in the third point, but do not leave a gap after cutting the circuit, because negative thoughts can return. It will be a bit awkward at first. You might feel a bit crazy talking to yourself or clapping midway, but persevere. With time, you will find it becomes a natural reflex. You will become the guardian of your mind's gate, not letting any negative intruder pass through unchecked. What you cut is not the actual problem, but your reaction to that problem. However, cutting the circuit alone is not enough. Once cut, you must install something else, right? If you only block negative thoughts without replacing them with something positive, that gap is very easily filled by other negative thoughts. This is when we use the power of magical thinking most actively. The third main point, image replacement, painting a vision of brilliant success instead of miserable failure. Our brain thinks in images and emotions. If you constantly visualize yourself failing, the brain will set that as the default script and prepare for it. Conversely, if you actively project images of success, the brain will start finding ways to make that a reality. When you have cut the circuit of a negative thought, immediately switch to painting a vision of brilliant success. How first is specification. Don't just think everything will be fine. Imagine it as detailed as possible. Next is vividness. Use all your senses. Regarding sight, what do you see when you succeed? The light, colors, the people around you. Regarding hearing, what do you hear? Congratulations, applause, victory music? Regarding feeling, how do you feel in that moment of victory? Joy, pride, relief, full energy? The sensation of your body. Regarding taste or scent, if possible, add these elements too. Finally, emotionalization. The most important thing is to feel the emotion of success. Immerse yourself in that joy, confidence, and satisfaction. For example, if you are afraid of public speaking and you have just cut the negative circuit of forgetting your lines or being laughed at, don't think about the scene of you trembling, forgetting lines, and everyone looking at you with disappointed eyes. Instead, imagine you are standing firm and confident on the podium. Your voice is clear, coherent, and engaging. You see everyone's eyes on you with admiration and understanding. You hear thunderous applause when you finish your presentation and feel the relief and pride of having mastered the situation. The more detailed, vivid, and emotional, the more powerful that image becomes, and your subconscious will believe in it more. The book, The Conquest of Fear, is not just about removing fear, but about building faith and confidence, and the image replacement technique is the key to doing that. So, auto-suggestion, circuit breaking, and image replacement. How do these three tools work together? We sow positive seeds, which is positive auto-suggestion. Pull out weeds as soon as they grow, which is circuit breaking, and water those positive seeds with vivid images of success, which is image replacement. This is not magic in the literal sense, but the science of the mind, the way you actively reprogram your brain to react more positively to every challenge. The power of magical thinking lies in you actively controlling the flow of your mind, not letting it be swept away by aimless negative waves. Start practicing right now. When a negative thought just sprouts, cut its circuit and immediately replace it with a brilliant, vivid vision of success. You will be surprised at what you can achieve. In Chapter 5, we will dig deeper into another aspect of dealing with fear, turning fear into motivation, and the power of action to break the cycle of anxiety. Chapter 5. Fear of health and death. The goal of this section is not for us to pretend that we are immortal or will never get sick. Rather, it is so that we can face existential fear directly, along with the fragility of this physical body, and find a more peaceful and fulfilling way of living. Let's start with something that perhaps many of us have experienced but have never truly looked at clearly: the inseparable connection between mind and body. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts when you are worried or afraid of something? Perhaps an exam, an important meeting, or simply bad news about an epidemic. Your stomach churns, your heart pounds. Sometimes there is a feeling of nausea, a headache, or even a stomach ulcer appearing for no clear reason. That is not a coincidence. That is how fear and negative emotions are creating an invisible poison within our own bodies. When we are afraid, our sympathetic nervous system activates the fight or flight mode. At this time, the body releases a series of stress hormones, such as cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones, in the short term, help us react faster to danger. But when fear is prolonged, when we live in a state of constant anxiety, these hormones become the enemy. They weaken our immune system, increase inflammation, push blood pressure high, and can lead to countless chronic health problems, from cardiovascular disease and diabetes to digestive issues and sleep disorders. Simply put, if our minds are constantly poisoned by fear, then our physical bodies will also be eroded from the inside. We create illnesses for ourselves through negative thoughts and emotions. This book wants us to realize that, so we can choose to stop poisoning ourselves and, instead, start nurturing a more peaceful and stronger mind. So how do we escape that toxic loop? By moving to the second point: accepting the laws of nature. Death is not the end, but a transformation. This is a difficult perspective to accept. I know, our entire lives we are taught that death is something scary, a loss, a full stop for everything. But if we look according to the laws of nature, if we expand our vision beyond the limits of one human lifetime, then death is just part of an eternal cycle. Look at nature. A leaf withers and falls, but it does not disappear. It decomposes, becoming nutrients for the soil, nourishing trees and new life. A star fades out, but its energy is not lost. It transforms into other forms of matter, perhaps creating a planet or a new galaxy. And so do we. This physical body is only a temporary shell, a vehicle for us to experience life. When its time ends, it will return to the earth, to the universe. But what about our essence? The energy, consciousness, the values and influence we create? Do they truly disappear? This book invites us to view death as a transition, a return to a greater source where everything begins and ends, and then begins again. when we accept that death is an inevitable part of life, the fear of it will gradually fade away. We will no longer live in the obsession with finitude, but instead focus on living every moment we have fully. This leads us to the final point, and also the most powerful message. Live as if you are spiritually immortal. Focus on vitality instead of disease. This is not a denial of the reality of illness or death. It is a reminder that we have the right to choose how we live and how we perceive life. Instead of obsessing over counting every gray hair or wrinkle, instead of being preoccupied with potential illnesses or fearing the future, focus on nurturing your vitality. Vitality is not just about a body without disease. It is about a spirit full of energy, an open heart, a mind eager to learn, and a resilient will. You cannot control your body getting older or weaker, but you can control how you react to it. You can choose to eat healthy, exercise, maintain an optimistic spirit, find joy in small things, contribute, and create value for the community. Living as if you are spiritually immortal means focusing on leaving a legacy, an indelible mark. That could be the love you give, the knowledge you share, the kind acts you perform, or simply the way you inspire those around you. Those things will live on, transcending the limits of the physical body. When we focus on vitality, on purpose, on creating meaning for our lives, the fear of illness and death will gradually become small, because we understand that life is not about avoiding death, but about living in the most meaningful and complete way. To end this chapter, I want you to take a moment to think. Where are you investing your energy? In the fear of what might happen, or in enjoying and building a life full of vitality and meaning? Life is finite, but the way we live can create an infinite impact. Conquer fear not by fighting it, but by living a life that makes that fear no longer important. Chapter 6. The fear of other people's judgment. This is not just an ordinary fear. It is like an invisible chain holding our feet back, preventing us from living our fullest and most authentic life. And that is exactly the core theme of Chapter 6, titled The Fear of Other People's Judgment, in the wonderful book, The Conquest of Fear. Our goal in this section is very clear, which is to free ourselves from the heavy shackles of social public opinion. Join me as we dive into the following 3 main points to help us achieve that freedom. First, we need to realize a truth. Everyone is too busy with their own fears to truly care about you. Let's be honest with each other. Have you ever spent hours just worrying about how you look, how you speak, or whether someone is judging your decisions negatively? Do you feel as if an eye is fixed on you? Some whisper about a mistake you made, or a disdainful shake of the head from the invisible crowd out there? If the answer is yes, then welcome to the club of people stuck in the spotlight effect. This is a psychological concept describing our tendency to think others are paying much more attention to us than they actually are. But the harsh truth, and also the truth that liberates our soul, is people don't care about you nearly as much as you imagine. It might sound a bit unpleasant, but just think about it. What are you busy with every day? Most of the time, your mind is occupied by work, by personal relationships, by bills to be paid, the dreams you are pursuing, and certainly by your own fears as well. It is the fear of not achieving anything, the fear of failure, the fear of not being loved, or the fear regarding health. Imagine for just a second, each of us has a complex universe swirling inside us. We are the main character in the movie of our life, while everyone else, no matter how important they are, is just a supporting character. Similarly, for everyone else, you are just a supporting character flickering in their story. They have their own movies to worry about, their own scripts to act, and their own fears to face. So, why do we have to waste so much energy and anxiety guessing what others are thinking about us, while they themselves are swirling with their own thoughts and fears? They might catch a glimpse of you stumbling, but just a few seconds later, their minds have immediately returned to work pressure or what to eat for dinner tonight. Realizing this is not to encourage us to be selfish or uncaring, but to free us from the burden of excessive self-consciousness. It allows us to breathe deeper, laugh more comfortably, and be more confident in being ourselves. When you understand that everyone is busy with themselves, you will find that you can breathe a sigh of relief and truly start your own life. The second point I want to emphasize is the danger of living someone else's life. If you keep worrying about the judgment of others, you will very easily fall into a dangerous trap, which is living the life others want you to live, not the life you truly crave from your heart. Ask yourself, are you living the life you truly want? Or are you performing a role written by parental expectations, by social pressure, or even by what you believe everyone will think well of you if you do this? What is the consequence of that? It is a life filled with regret. Looking back later, you will see that you missed so many opportunities to discover yourself, to pursue passion, and to live true to your core values. You will feel empty, not because you failed, but because you never truly made an effort to be yourself. Imagine you are like a sculptor creating a work of art for your life. Every decision, every choice, or every word is an important stroke of the chisel. If you constantly have to ask outsiders how you should chisel, then change the direction of your sculpture according to each suggestion. Will you ultimately create a unique work that bears your own mark? Or will you just receive a shapeless mess without soul, reflecting nothing of the artist within you? I remember a very good saying that it doesn't matter what people say. What matters is how you live your life. We are unique individuals, each with our own talent, interests, and distinct path. Trying to become a perfectly socially accepted version will only dim that uniqueness, making you lose your voice and your own identity. Furthermore, living someone else's life leads to mental exhaustion. You will always have to wear a mask and try to maintain an image that is not you. That is a huge psychological burden, eroding your energy and the joy of living every day. Ask yourself, when I follow others' opinions without truly agreeing, what am I losing? Is it freedom, authenticity, or even a part of my very soul? Bravely living your life in your own way is an act of self-love and the strongest foundation to build a meaningful life. Third, and the most important solution: build self-esteem based on intrinsic value instead of seeking external praise. So, how do we escape the cycle of fear of judgment to live our own life? The secret lies in shifting the foundation of self-esteem from the outside world into the depths of your being. Self-esteem, if based on external praise, is like a house built on sand. It is extremely fragile and easily collapses before a wind of criticism or a wave of indifference. If your self-worth depends on what others think, you will forever be a puppet controlled by the invisible strings of public opinion. You will always be busy seeking compliments, always fearing criticism, and always feeling insecure. Conversely, internal self-esteem is a solid fortress built on solid rock. It is never shaken by fleeting words or malicious judgmental looks. Its foundation is the deep understanding of your own values, principles, and life purpose. That is not arrogance, but a deep self-awareness. It is knowing clearly who you are, what you believe in, and what you want to contribute to this world, regardless of whether others agree or not. To build internal self-esteem, first identify your core values. What is truly important to you? Is it honesty, compassion, creativity, independence, lifelong learning, or dedication? Write down from 3 to 5 most important values, because this is the compass that guides you. Next, act according to those values. When you make a decision consistent with the values you have chosen, your self-esteem will naturally increase. You will feel that you are a consistent and reliable person to yourself. Conversely, when you go against your values just to please others, you will feel inner conflict and diminished self-esteem. Besides, focus on progress rather than perfection. Be kind to yourself because you don't need to be perfect. What matters is that you are making an effort, learning and growing every day. Celebrate small steps and the times you bravely did the right thing despite potential criticism. Finally, learn to forgive yourself. When you make a mistake, don't let it diminish your value as a person. Instead, forgive yourself, learn from that mistake, and commit to doing better in the future. This will strengthen your resilience and self-esteem. Ask yourself, what is truly important to me? If I only have one life to live, what do I want it to be shaped by? When you have a clear answer and start living according to those answers, you will find the fear of other people's judgment gradually fading away. You no longer need external approval because you have gained the most important approval, which is your own approval. The power to free yourself from the fear of judgment is right in your hands. It is a choice to trust yourself, a choice to be true to yourself, and a choice to build a life you are truly proud of rather than performing for anyone else to see. This is a long journey, not an instant destination. There will be times you still feel a bit anxious, but now you have in your hands the tools to identify and overcome it. Start today, step by step, living your brilliant life. Chapter 7, Love, the Nemesis of Fear. Have you ever wondered, if fear is a pervasive darkness, what can dispel it most effectively? The answer does not lie in blind courage, nor is it about us trying to brace ourselves to endure it, but it comes from the brightest inner light itself, and that is love. The goal of this chapter is very clear, which is to learn how to use love and connection to dispel the darkness of fear. It might sound a bit too philosophical, doesn't it? But believe me, it is much more practical and closer to you than you think. First of all, there is a classic saying that I believe each of us should take to heart, a powerful affirmation that has been repeated through centuries and many cultures. Perfect love casts out all fear. When you hear the phrase, perfect love, please do not rush to think of a romantic love like in the movies, or something too ideal and distant. Perfect love here carries a much broader meaning. It is unconditional love. It is altruism. It is the vast love for fellow human beings, for life, and most importantly, it is the love for yourself. Imagine this. When you truly love someone deeply, you are willing to do anything for them. You worry and want to protect them with all your heart. At that moment, your focus has shifted from worrying about yourself to sincere concern for others. And in that miraculous moment, personal fears such as the fear of failure, the fear of being rejected, or the fear of not being good enough, all seem to step back to make room for a stronger motivation, Love is like a solid fortress protecting your mind from the arrows of fear. When your heart is full of love, there is no longer room for doubt, jealousy, or fear to exist. Because the light of love itself is enough to dispel all darkness. But then, how do we practice this perfect love in our daily lives to dispel fear? The book, The Conquest of Fear, has pointed out a very practical way for us. The second key point we need to discuss is, when you are busy helping others, you will forget your own fear. It sounds simple, but this is an extremely profound truth. We humans often have a tendency to get caught in the spiral of personal worries about work, money, relationships, or our own future. Those fears usually only focus on the I and what belongs to me. But just think about it. Have you ever been very worried about something, and then suddenly a friend or a family member needs your help? When you rush to help them, you forget to eat, forget to sleep, and your mind is only focused on their problem. And then, when everything ends, you suddenly realize you have completely forgotten your own anxiety during those past few hours. That is the power of directing focus outward. When you put yourself in someone else's shoes, when you spend time and energy to share, listen, and help, your brain will automatically switch its focus. Your fear does not disappear completely, but it is pushed to the background and becomes much smaller. You feel the connection, the empathy, and in those moments, you no longer feel lonely or helpless. You understand that you are part of something bigger, and that brings a sense of peace, much stronger than fear. Therefore, try to look for opportunities to help others. Even the smallest acts, like a word of encouragement, a handshake, a carefully prepared meal, or simply taking the time to listen. You will be surprised at how these small acts can cleanse your soul from the burden of fear. And finally, another precious gem that the book wants to give us is the power of forgiveness. We need to forgive ourselves and others to release blocked energy sources. Do you know that the burden of resentment, hatred, or even feelings of guilt and self-blame are the blocked energies that are holding us back? They are like invisible chains binding your mind to the past, to mistakes of yourself or others that you cannot change. Fear loves such environments to multiply and grow. When you hold on to resentment, you live in the fear of being hurt again. When you blame yourself, you live in the fear of not being good enough and the fear of being judged. Forgiveness is not about you agreeing with the wrong actions of others, nor is it about you ignoring the hurts you have had to endure. Forgiveness is an act of liberation for yourself. It is your decision to not let the past control your present and future for even one more minute. You accept what happened, learn from it, and then bravely let go. When you forgive others, you not only release them from your judgment, but more importantly, you release yourself from the burden of resentment. You create an empty space in your soul so that love and peace can fill it. And friends, do not forget to forgive yourself. Perhaps this is the most difficult thing for many people, because we are often very harsh with ourselves, constantly criticizing our mistakes and shortcomings. But remember that you are a human being, and no human is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes at some point. Learning to accept and love yourself with all your weaknesses as well as strengths is the foundation of perfect love. When you forgive yourself, you release yourself from the fear of imperfection, from the burden of regret, and allow yourself to grow to live more fully. In summary, love is not merely an emotion. It is an action, a choice, and a power capable of changing an entire life. When we actively practice love, from understanding that perfect love casts out all fear, to committing to helping others to shift our focus, and finally releasing all burdens through forgiveness, we are creating an internal space where fear cannot exist. We are building a solid fortress with our own love. Start today by choosing to love, choosing to connect, and choosing to forgive. You will see that as your heart expands, fear will automatically step back to make room for true peace and freedom. Chapter 8: Living Fully in the Present Moment. Perhaps you are like me, sometimes feeling like your mind is like a restless little monkey, constantly jumping from one branch to another. It flies back to the past with regrets, and even more dangerously, it zooms into the future with countless anxieties and endless what-ifs. Will I have enough money? What will happen to my children? Will my job be stable? Will there be any health issues? Thousands of unanswered questions pour into us, making the present seem like just a temporary and insecure transit station. But think about this. Where does fear actually exist? Most of our fears are not about what is actually happening right now. At this very moment, as you are listening to me, is there anything actually threatening you or putting you in immediate danger? The answer is likely no. Fear, in its essence, is a ghost of the future. It is a worst-case scenario that your mind paints, a vision that may or may not happen, but it has the terrible power to drain your energy and peace in the present tense. It is a negative prediction, a speculation based on things that have not arrived. Peace, on the contrary, is a gift that only exists in the present. You cannot feel peaceful about a problem that will happen next week. You can only feel peaceful about the moment you are living. When you breathe deeply, when you feel the warmth of the teacup in your hand, or when you listen to the birds singing outside the window, those are pure present moments. And in those seconds, fear has no place to hide. We often talk to each other about living in the present, but have you ever truly stopped and felt it? Give it a try. Stop for a moment, take a very deep breath, and feel your own breath. At that exact moment, are you afraid? Very rarely, because you are truly here and right now. So how do we anchor that mind and keep it from drifting toward a scary future? The book brings us an extremely effective tactic, a philosophy of life that I have applied and seen change many things. That is the day-tight compartments tactic, also known as living day by day. Imagine your life is like a large ship divided into many watertight compartments. Each day is a separate ship compartment. Our goal is to only live and resolve the problems of today's compartment. Do not let water from yesterday's compartment carrying regrets and mistakes leak through, and do not try to pump water from tomorrow's compartment with anxieties and yet-to-come plans into today's compartment. This does not mean that we do not plan for the future. Planning is necessary. We still need to schedule work, set goals, and save money. But worrying is absolutely not helpful. Worrying is when you keep thinking about a tomorrow's problem that you can do nothing to change right now. The day-tight compartments tactic encourages us to focus 100% of our energy and attention on the things you can do and the problems you can solve today. It helps you simplify life, reduce overwhelm, and increase efficiency. When you wake up every morning, tell yourself that today I will live today to the fullest. I will focus on today's tasks, enjoy today's joys, and face today's challenges. Do not allow your mind to wander into next week, next month, or next year. Be the captain of your today's ship compartment and bravely close the door to all other compartments. All right, but how can we feel more peaceful rather than just avoiding fear? This is when we come to the third point, something seemingly small, but with immense power. Enjoying small joys right now to raise your positive vibrational frequency. We often tend to wait for great events to feel happy, such as a long trip, a big goal completed, or a resounding success. But true happiness and true peace are scattered in every tiny moment of daily life. Take some time to truly feel your fragrant morning coffee, from the warmth of the cup and the seductive scent to the sweet bitterness spreading on the tip of your tongue. Pay attention to the early morning sunlight creeping through the window, warming the room. Listen to a piece of music you love and allow yourself to be completely immersed in that melody. Or simply a smile from a loved one. A moment you look at the green trees and breathe deeply the scent of a flower. Each of these moments of enjoyment is like a small brick you are using to build a solid wall against fear. It is not merely about pleasure. It also helps you anchor your mind in reality and activates positive emotions. In the field of personal development, people often talk about raising your vibrational frequency. When you experience joy, gratitude, and peace, you are emitting a higher energy frequency. When your frequency is high, fear and anxiety, which are low-frequency emotions, will find it hard to exist. It is just like turning on the light in a dark room. The darkness of fear will automatically disappear. Therefore, the core message of this chapter 8 is simple, yet extremely powerful. First, you need to remember that fear belongs to the future, while peace belongs to the present. Always be conscious of this whenever your mind starts wandering. Second, apply the day-tight compartments tactic to only live and solve today's problems, while closing the doors to yesterday and tomorrow decisively. And third, find joy in every small second, enjoying them fully to raise your positive energy, creating a space that fear cannot touch. Remember that you always have the power to choose where your mind resides. You can let it be dragged by the ghosts of the future, or you can anchor it in the peace and beauty of the present moment. Try applying these techniques starting from right now. You absolutely deserve to live a full life without being held back by imaginary worries. In the next chapter, we will continue to explore other aspects of facing and conquering fear. And now, to conclude all the essence of this video, I want you to remember 3 golden keys, 3 immutable principles that have been distilled from that classic book and from my own personal experience. These are not just empty theories. They are practical and powerful tools that you can carry with you to face and overcome any fear in life. The first golden key, and perhaps the most important one, is fear is a product of the imagination, and you have full control over it. You know, I believe this is the most precious gem the book has given us. Fear, in essence, is just an uninvited guest, and it only stays when you give it permission. It is not an external entity imposed on you, but a ghost nurtured by the worst-case scenarios your own mind paints. Are you afraid of failure? That is when your mind draws a vision of everyone laughing at you and losing everything. Are you afraid of being rejected? That is when your mind creates an image of you standing there alone, feeling lonely and inadequate. But the good news is that the one who created it is also the one who has the power to control it. Think of it like sitting in front of the TV screen of your own life, and the channel you are watching is a horror movie directed by fear. You can absolutely pick up the remote to switch to another channel, a channel of hope, courage, and infinite possibilities. You can even turn off the TV, stand up, and create your own movie. When you realize that the source of fear lies within you, you simultaneously realize the immense power you hold. It is the power to change the story, to reshape your thoughts, and ultimately, to free yourself from invisible shackles. Take a deep breath and tell yourself that this is just a thought. This is not the truth. And then you will see the power of fear begin to fade away. Next, we move to the second golden key. Connect with the divine source, with the universe, to never feel alone. In the weakest moments, when fear closes in, the feeling of loneliness can become overwhelming. The feeling that the whole world is against you, or worse, indifferent to you, is one of the most primal fears of mankind. The book emphasizes the importance of finding a higher power, whether that is religious faith, spirituality, or simply a sense of connection with something greater than yourself. For me, this does not necessarily have to be a specific belief system. It can be the feeling of connecting with nature when you stand in the middle of a vast forest, or the peace when you meditate and feel the pulse of the universe in every breath. It is the understanding that you are a small but important part of a larger picture, and you are not a drifting island. When you feel supported by a greater energy, personal burdens suddenly become much lighter. You no longer have to carry everything alone. There is an invisible support, a flow of positive energy always ready to comfort and give you more strength. Take time to quiet your mind, listen to the inner voice, and feel the presence of this power. When you truly connect, you will never truly be alone again, and fear will lose its foothold. And finally, the third golden key, but no less important. Action is the enemy of fear. Keep walking, and fear will disappear. This is an astonishingly simple truth, but extremely effective. Fear is like a monster fed in the darkness. It grows strongest when we stand still, staring at it, and letting our imagination paint the worst things. But the light of action is its number one enemy. Are you afraid of a new job? Start by reading documents and planning for the first day. Are you afraid of public speaking? Prepare your presentation thoroughly and practice in front of a mirror or a trusted friend. Are you afraid of a difficult conversation? Write down what you want to say and imagine the other person's reaction. You don't need great leaps. Sometimes just a small step, a specific action, even the smallest one, is enough to break the chains of fear. When you start walking, even if stumbling, fear will no longer have a place to cling. It cannot exist in the same space as proactivity and determination. It will be pushed back, shrunk, and finally vanish like morning mist. Remember this saying: action is the strongest antidote for fear. Don't wait until fear disappears before you act. Act so that fear disappears. And those are the 3 golden keys, the 3 immutable principles from the Conquest of Fear that I want you to engrave in your mind. Carry these keys with you, use them, and always believe in your own inner strength, because the truth is, you are fully capable of conquering every fear to live the fulfilling and meaningful life you have always dreamed of. And before we say goodbye in today's video, I want us to do something small but meaningful together. The book, The Conquest of Fear, has opened up many profound perspectives for us on the nature of fear and how we can face it, even turning it into our strength, right? So, now is the time to turn that inspiration into a first concrete action. I would love to hear, what is the greatest fear that you are determined to overcome? Could it be the fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, or even fear of change? Do not hesitate to share your story or simply name that fear in the comments section below. You know, sometimes just naming the fear, writing it down, and sharing it in a safe space is already the first step toward liberation and conquest. Let our comment section become a small community where we can understand, support, and encourage each other on the journey to conquer the things that are still holding us back. I believe that when we know we are not alone, that journey will be much less arduous. And if these shares, these perspectives from books and from the heart have touched you, if you feel that videos like this bring peace, inspiration, and sometimes a mind-healing medicine for you, then do not forget to press the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you will not miss any videos that we passionately create to bring positive energy, inspiring stories, and deep insights to help you live a fuller life every day. Finally, before we part ways, I want to send you a message, a reminder that I always keep in mind. Fear is only an illusion created in the mind. True power lies in how you choose to face it, step through it, and turn it into a stepping stone to reach your own freedom. May you always find the inner strength to overcome all challenges and always live a full, peaceful, and meaningful life. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen and accompany me today. See you in the next videos.